to the new lights, at this time, it's better.
Seconds.
So I don't know what's happening on that. Looking at the original panel, looking at the lights. After I started asking silly questions and got officers running up and down after me, I was then told to Bishop, so 40 hours, everybody else around me was being. So thank you. Makes you wonder whether it's worth community when you do. And finally, thank you to the person who got the lights, the laser columns done, because I've now got an orange light which flashes all the time. Doing that, whoever did it, I wish they put it right, and so they light up when they're supposed to.
Thank you, Mr.
Is that it? Right, okay.
Okay, please stay. I'll deal very briefly with as many of those points I can cover. Working backwards through it, the process for reviewing the artists who were shortlisted for the lights was overseen by Vance Back and the Coastal Community team, not by the council itself. So they organised and organised that. In fact, we just had one representative, which happened to be me because the brief holder was absent. In terms of the town clerk's salary, that is prescribed by national scales, and that's based on an estimate of the total turnover of the town council as it will exist in Weymouth, which we anticipate will be probably the second or third largest town council in the country. You know, like you, I was quite surprised at its size, but when I thought about it, there'll be a lot of staff and it'll be quite complex. So that's a salary issue. The town centre manager is involved in a very wide programme of work, so I could go through them, but they're numerous, replacing tarmac patches with bricks, replacing the bins in the town, the flower arrangements that now appeared in the town were done by the town centre manager. He's very active, and we just extended his budget to do more. And in terms of town council itself, the reason you've got a number of questions, so have we. We have got to the stage of identifying a wide range of services. This will be a very active town council that we could pass over with the budgets. As soon as we've got a better picture of exactly what range of services we think is the right one to present to more widely to councillors, we will do that. And I think we've got a meeting coming up fairly shortly on that. Today, yes. Thank you. Julie.
We're currently working on bringing a report to the October Management Committee, which will set out the functions that we're looking at transferring to the Town Council.
That's great. I mean, we're as anxious as you are to get this thing resolved so we can start to work forward with the new clerk, hopefully. So thank you for that, Ken.
Thank you.
Okay, can we have Ryan Hope, please?
I'm speaking to the paper, Chair.
Oh, okay.
You've got two at the top, David.
Dina Ellison.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Okay, Dina Ellis, please.
It's Dinah, actually.
Dinah. Two names I got wrong this morning.
Show your age, you're young.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for that. I'll give you the £20 later.
Thank you. I'm here to express gratitude in relation to the seafront lighting scheme, to Dorset Coast Forum for their project management in face of what I gather is quite a lot of vitriol, which as councillors you'll be used to, but I think it's quite unwarranted. As a resident, I've been really grateful for the opportunity to be involved in the process, from the initial displays on the seafront to the presentation in the library, the online information, which was excellent on the Dorset Coast Forum pages, and I submitted questions and got answers very quickly. There's all sorts of facts available on Dorset for You, access to the design brief, which I found really interesting, which obviously gives all the restrictions that are involved, the justification, the report that you have in front of you today, which again gives a good information compared to Torquay. I found all this involvement a lot more satisfying than just ticking a box on Facebook. And I'm most grateful for the restoration of the beautiful vista of the seafront, without the clutter. No more horizontal lines of cables which got in the way of everything. You can see the beautiful buildings. The scaffold poles, which there were a great number holding up the cables before, have gone. There's proper respect for our listed buildings, the clock and the shelters, which are listed buildings which no longer have wires and inappropriate bulbs on them. The gathering up of the Victorian columns, which were then placed along Green Hill, not just restored but also embellished with further lighting on them. It's created a really well lit walk along there, which is a pleasure to do in the evenings. This scheme that you've got in front of you represents, it respects all those improvements.
30 seconds, Ms.
It's
Ellis.
an innovative solution, and I would ask that you would support it. I don't have a question, that's it.
Thank you. Now do stay for a moment.
Yeah.
I was very tempted to give you another 10 minutes actually. It is so rare to have everything, all of these things, toilets and dogs and everything are so controversial. We get very vociferous people, very outspoken about either side of these arguments. I know it's a great effort to come along to a meeting when you're busy during the day, but thank you very much for coming on and expressing support. It helps to balance some of the arguments you've heard against the scheme. Thank you.
The information is there, people just don't look at it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Mr. Farn, who's been displaced from his normal seat, which is unsettling for all of us, I think.
Yes. Right. What have I got here? First of all, page 3 of the minutes. I've got it here on paper. I demand the paper one because I don't do computers. Right. It says here that the council along here, Waste Partnership, had a refund. Right. I would like to ask Mr. Duggan where the refund and how much the refund was to clever it up to actually do this town up a bit more, use money. We need every penny we can get from Mr. Duggan, and even along by the Gurkha where I keep shouting about day after day after day on there. Right? The reside in the London Hill, June the 28th. They run for a second partnership in the, well, I don't emphasise on what they're doing, they're the Martians, they're ludicrous. They shouldn't have any prizes at all. So the funds can go elsewhere, not on the seafront. This is paper here saying that, they do it 7 days a week, and even in between, they'll come night time on a busy day like this. Why? Weymouth is Weymouth. I walked through the marsh today coming here from where I live round East Coast, and my carrier bag couldn't carry all the things with bins in between, cans and whatever down there. So they've got, Weymouth is Weymouth, not just you keep saying about Weymouth seafront. It's not on. The night the last meeting, and he said he was going to see Mr. Tile about the stupid idea up by the clock where we used to have, coming from the statue, 2 lanes, one for Preston, one from there, and the lights were back at Rossi's. So what on now, Mr. Tile took the fences down at the Olympics, and he's taken out the middle lane that goes towards Preston, and put a corral for pedestrians to stand in while the lights are red and get the most stupid this council or Dorset ever done. I don't know whether you could do anything about it. Mr. Rockall went and he said about it in Dorchester, and they just said, we're looking into it. That's one of the biggest things that winds me up. Something and doing nothing. But on there, that was it. What else? Yeah, new lights on the seafront. I don't need to say anything about that. But here, it's in here, it's in the minutes, page 3. And when I talk about waste partnership, it also referred to head policy. A waste partner refund has been received by the council. So can you and where that funding is going to go? What else can I talk about? The envelopes. The envelopes really fell out, but it didn't. On there. This here about this thing here, look, is a waste. When are they going to do that? He said, down by the Gurkha, they put all concrete down there, and it's nearly as bad as it was bloody before they started. I've been told that it's on the cards. It's not if it'll be done, it'll be when it'll be done. It'll be too late in a minute. The concrete will be all rubbish up. Do something now. We need to do maintenance now. They keep on about these big lights. They said, oh, we don't know where the maintenance money's coming from.
Time's up, Mr.
So therefore they're going to build something and don't put in a maintenance plan.
Thank you, Mr. Farn.
Answer some of them.
Right, okay, yeah, I'm sure Councillor Hackle will have something to say about the traffic flows and pedestrianisation and those stuff.
Yes, thank you. Councillor and myself did have a meeting with two officers at the County Council. Unfortunately, Mr. Piles didn't attend, but we raised a number of issues, some which I've raised previously. There are a number of schemes on the shelf around the town, dependent on financing. They are hoping to get a significant bid into the Coastal Communities Fund, the same sort of people that are sponsoring our lights. And one or two of those projects does concern the flow of pedestrians and traffic through King Street and the Esplanade. However, when that will take place, I don't know. Whether the two lanes will reappear or only one lane, I don't know, but it's all under consideration, and I do think that Mr. Farmer's probably got a point about the way that was implemented some years ago, but at the moment that's what we've got. Thank you.
Yeah, we should probably just briefly add that in the context of our much wider regeneration programme, the whole issue of traffic flow around the town will have to be reviewed. Councillor Novak, do you have anything to say about the Dorset Waste Partnership refund?
Just to confirm, there is a refund. It will go into central pocket. Mr. Dutton can give this fuller picture.
Thank you, Councillor Nowak. Just to confirm that the refund around £70,000. The majority went back into the council's general reserve. A portion was used to aid the further replacement of litter bins in the town.
Not at all.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Farn. Councillor questions, we get slightly more time for that. Councillor Ho, 5 minutes.
Chair, can I speak to the paper, please?
Oh, sorry, yes, you did say that to me before. My apologies. Okay, Councillor Bruce. I hardly need to tell you, Ian, how long we've got. So, off he goes.
Chairman, I spoke to you last evening about one of the issues I'm going to deal with, but the first issue I'm going to deal with is very much on the agenda, and that is the toilets. In September 2016, this committee commissioned a new set of toilets to replace the ones that were closed at the top of Bond Street. It was set out how it would be done. Councillor Blackwood was the appropriate community facilities brief holder, and as you'll know, after the elections he ceased to be the brief holder, and Councillor Kate Weller became brief holder. I sent Councillor Weller a massive information that I had gleaned about the fact that we were underspending our toilets budget, and that we really should have been refurbishing all the existing toilets, and indeed there's some reference to spending that money. However, you have a paper in front of you which does not deal with what you decided in 2016, which was to put a new state-of-the-art toilet somewhere on the Esplanade, and all the explanation that has come out is just simply 2020 we might start dealing with it, because the site that's been chosen in this particular paper is the TRC building. And the TRC building, if you want to go back, if I had an hour or two, I could go back all the proposals that were on the TRC building, which again have never been through. So what I would say to you is that, particularly in the news that we had today from the shadow unitary authority, that it wants to take car park income and use it for services, they'll probably find an ultra-virus in doing so.
Yeah.
Big argument about this. So car park income can definitely be put into toilets, and if the unitary authority is going to run car parks and get the car park income, then they're going to have to pay for toilets. This idea that if it's a non-statutory function that the unitary authority is going to do it, well, you know, that's officer speak, but well, we don't want to spend our money. Councillors will want very good toilets for our town. So I would say to you that this paper that you have in front of you is wholly inadequate in doing what the bleakholder was asked to do, and you know, I'm really sorry that I have to make this quite personal, that Councillor Weller has been crying wolf about not being allowed to get on with it. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the extraordinary vote that was had over the issue about having the Jurassic Coast Highway. I thought just putting in a line to suggest in our consultation that we all wanted the road would have universal support. We had all sorts of strange things coming from the Green Party, Councillor Weller again, and in fact even the Mayor voted against, I understand, keeping this in policy documents. We have been trying to get this road back in the system for years. I challenged Matthew Piles to send me a copy of the report that justified having this road, and that was produced back in 2016 again. And lo and behold, last night at the last minute, I've now got the updated report, 2018, which I've yet had a chance to read, and didn't realise that in fact they were sending me an updated report now. My understanding is that you are making very good progress with ministers to get this road built. And frankly, when the council, in full council, has a vote which says, well, no, we don't like this, it's never going to be built, you know, all the rest of it, it's exactly the wrong image that we want to give to ministers. We want to have everybody, every single political party, able to say, right, we want this, and I would be grateful if we can get a motion down in the next full council where we can all vote and say, you know, we know it's difficult, but we, this council, want to have the road built. Thank you. I think I'm out of time.
30 seconds to go on.
Oh, am I?
Do you need it, or do you?
I'd like a response if I may. I think Councillor Richard Nichols has
Clearly, we're having a debate about the toilets fairly soon. Do you want to respond during the course of that, or do you want to respond now?
I'd quite like to respond to Councillor Bruce now, if I may. First of all, thank you for the papers you sent me. I didn't need them actually, because I did have them all already. I had done my homework in advance, I do assure you. The site of the former TIC building is clearly the most central site and the best site for want of a better word, the Superloo. You will recall, because you were a part of this council, at the time that we got vacant possession on the TIC, we said that we wanted to use it for something quite significant. We weren't sure at that time what that significance was, but that's what we wanted to do. However, we decided that we would let it out in the interim period on a rolling contract that could be rescinded at short notice. That was a vote taken by this management committee. Sometime later, Mr. Bruce, I didn't interrupt you, I didn't wag my head at you, or anything else, so please be quiet. So rude. Later on, this management committee, for sound reasons, decided to give the contracts to the two people currently in that building a longer period of time. They extended that contract. That contract does not now come to its end until next year. Now we could, as we did last time, pay those people off, but it caused huge dissent in the town when we did it last time. I personally am reluctant to do it again, so we will be dealing with these people as their leases are terminated. We won't be asking them to terminate them early. If this committee chooses they want to do that, I'd be delighted. But I'm not asking them to. If they want to come forward and say they think it's the best plan, then that's fine. In the interim period, you will see from that programme that we have the plans in place to do exactly what we wanted to do. That has nothing to do with replacing the former Bond Street toilets. Clearly, toilets at the King's statue do not serve people at the other end of the beach. We are dealing with that as well. As you know very well, these things don't happen overnight. I'm tired of you popping at me.
I'm sure some of these issues will come back to us when we actually address item 7. Just to go back to the road issue though, I would say that, just very briefly, that you're absolutely right when you ask the question, how's that being progressed? I personally feel that South North Road it would be a fantastic infrastructure benefit to West Dorset. I mean, we have to think more broadly now about the benefit to the entire county, particularly the west of it, and as well as providing an essential link into what we hope will be the new employment opportunities and tourist opportunities through Nemo and Jurassica and the expanding port, would also provide a great opportunity to develop more housing on its entire route south north. So we will be including that in further negotiations with Jake Berry, the Minister for Communities and Local Government, over the next couple of months. Thank you. Sorry, Richard.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously,
let's not extend the debate about toilets any further now, because we're going to have that full debate. So let's not make it a
question on the road. I was disappointed about the vote at council because I think it sent the wrong message. Clearly, it is only a consultation document, but I think it was a shame that councillors chose not to support that reintroduction into the plan. I think it is something which is essential for Portland going forward. I think if we want to see development of the port, I think it's essential we work towards that. It is a scheme which is no doubt going to be expensive, but I think if we can get some funding for it, so much the better. And I would like to obviously support everything the Councillor said. I think we need to keep it on the radar. As I say, it is a consultation document. I would urge any the public who have the opportunity to look at the document and make their representations if they feel that they are in support of it. And I know many people I've spoken to are very much in support of the building of this road, and I think it's essential for the future of the area.
Councillor Novak.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I would like to applaud the Leader of the Council in his effort to try and get the Jurassic Road on the agenda. I know you've had a number of meetings with ministers that lobbied the funding for that road. I said at full council I would applaud the making of the Jurassic Highway reality because it would be good for the economy of the area. So that's not an objection to the road, that would actually support the communities of particular Wyke and Portland. One thing is very clear, there is not a commitment previously by this council. It was not in the 2015 local plan, so we haven't taken it out, it's not in there. The reason why it's not being pursued at this time in the local plan is because we're not a highway authority. The highway authority currently is Dorset County Council, and they have said there's not sufficient money in the pot to create a Jurassic Highway. They have equally lobbied the government for 98 million to build this road, and they've been told by the ministers we like the idea, but there's not enough money. So quite clearly there is an intention of all the councillors to support infrastructure improvements, particularly for the borough. But the bill for this road will be paid for the government and county council. Currently, both of them saying not money in the pot. The reason that we're not putting in the local plan, and remind you, the local plan is about making sure we have sufficient building land for housing and development. That's what the local plan is about. If we were to add in the consultation for a road, as the officer explained at full council, we would have to hire in consultants because we don't have employed highway authority officers. We're not a highway authority. So it's where we are. I repeat, I applaud the leaders lobbying for the funding of this road. I hope it will bear fruit.
Thank you, Councillor Novak, for that very pragmatic response. And, we do need to show unity in this coming period as a council to secure the best possible deal we can from these connections we've made with government over the last couple of years. And the infrastructure spend is obviously something we should all back. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hubble.
Thank you. Actually, Councillor Novak's more or less said what I was going to say. So basically the office for advice, and it's a county council stroke unitary authority decision. The other thing perhaps which he missed but he did raise at the meeting was that it's all very well getting across Ferry Bridge with the road, but within the scheme you need to address Fortunes Well and the rest of the island with some better road schemes. So it's just more than the Jurassic Highway, it's the rest of Portland as well.
That's a point very well made. It's essential we have infrastructure on the island as well as leading onto it. Councillor David.
Can I just add basically what I said at full council, 7610 of the local plan says that if circumstances change then the position will be reviewed. And that to me says it all basically. If circumstances change, we'll look at it again. But as has already been said, we don't have the money. There's no money available for it at the moment. I hope there is, but I don't vote for it. I don't vote against it because I take a pragmatic view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Okay, if we move on then to item 6, the Weymouth Promenade artistic lighting, which is very well phrased. Just before I turn over to the brief folder for that, just a very brief point to contextualise this. We've now embarked, we've got into planning a £30 million scheme for the development of the peninsula itself. We've got a £250,000 makeover scheme about to start in the autumn for the Pavilion Theatre, and all of these things add together with the lights to enhance the whole area, the whole vista across the beach and across the peninsula. It's all part of a grand plan, not just something taken out of isolation. Richard.
Thank you, Chair. The paper is in front of you. The purpose of the report, as it says, I'm going to read it verbatim, to provide an update on the project to design and install a new lighting project for Weymout Promenade, to present the design proposal for the project, set out its technical feasibility and long-term cost implications, and obtain a decision on project progression. The recommendation is, there's one recommendation, to approve the proposed design for the promenade lighting project and delegate power to the strategic director in consultation with the brief order to undertake all necessary actions to progress the required planning application and undertake all other related actions, including any related decisions necessary to progress this project to a conclusion. That is the purpose of this paper.
Anyone want to comment on that? Or do you want to relate to the recommendation? Anyone propose the recommendation? Those have got questions?
I propose
Ryan asked.
Oh, sorry, Ryan. I completely forgot. I should have forgot you're so big, but I think I'm.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, fellow councillors. What I would like to say is, I know the town is majorly in favour of fairy lights, and we've heard through this paper that it's not affordable. That's the reason being given not to pursue the option. I don't believe that all options have been pursued. There has been numerous occasions where the members of Weymout&Portland and further afield who have came to Weymouth during their time as family, on holiday, through generations, have offered to fund this. They have offered to sponsor a bulb, a year contribution for the maintenance of that bulb. It's been offered to this council. One lady who started the campaign originally, Susan Jane Smith, I believe has spoken to many members of this management committee and past members of this management committee. And it seems that information hasn't been passed on to maybe new members or through colleagues. So I believe the fact that we say it's unaffordable, we haven't explored all the options. Now personally, am I a major fan of fairy lights? I would say no, not really. But however, we are elected members. We are elected to represent the views of the people. As you are aware, there is a petition already online with over 1,135 votes to bring back fairy lights at the last option. This isn't the first petition in this thing. And again, we talk about modernisation. It doesn't need to be the old bulbs. We can look at LEDs. We don't have to put it around the clock, as we heard. We don't have to put it around the seating. It's up to us to do. But I don't believe that all the options are being explored. And now I believe that we are being scaremongered down a tunnel to vote for this option put before us this evening. Because if we don't, we're going to lose the funding. Now I ask, why are we in this position? Because the people haven't been listened to throughout the consultation process. We're not just talking fairy lights, we're talking about interactive lighting that was proposed to support people with disabilities so they can participate in the activity. Weymouth, we do have quite a few. We have specialist schools with disabled people, and have they been consulted? Did they come back? I don't believe the consultation has been thorough enough. I don't believe the people have been listened to. And I think we need to have a real look at ourselves here today and remember, yes, okay, we could be giving them go saying we can't have this money because we don't like the plan. But at the same time, as I've said, we are here to represent the people of Weymout&Portland. They don't want these lights. Could we be sold another white elephant such as the lasers? And with this, I ask you to consider these thoughts whilst you debate the paper. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor.
No, that's it. We've got the paper. Okay, so
Okay, we've heard the case for Councillor.
Can I just congratulate Dinah Ellis for what she said on this subject, and just to say thanks to her and a group that she's involved with as the Friends of Logmore Park for what they do in the town.
Yes, and of course, we have consulted widely, including the Civic Society, who are also quite strongly in favour of this particular scheme. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. I'm very much in two minds about this. I possibly will abstain, but I really don't know at the moment. The things I look around the country, and there's all sorts of art things that have gone in that the local people have really objected to, haven't liked, and then in the end they go, well, it's not too bad. The two I actually looked at quite length was the Angel of the North. There was so much opposition to that when that was put in. And interestingly, the locals got on board, and I think it was a Sunderland show that was put onto it, and they all went, okay, that's great, which is good. The other one, though, is Verity at Ilfracombe, the Damien Hirst. If you look at the objections to that, there were hundreds of objections when it came to planning, the people didn't like it. But if you look at the economic growth of Ilfracombe based on that, people come to it. Just based on their car parking income there, that has massively increased because they've got a Damien Hirst there, albeit only for a short time. As I say, I'm very much in two minds about this. It's not what I would have wanted. To me, it's a pastiche of the fairy lights, and I hated the fairy lights. I've been quite public in saying that. I would have preferred something very different, but we are where we are. So basically, we've got to make a decision based on what we have in front of us. We can't make a decision based on what we would like, any additional consultation that we would like. So I don't know what I'm going to do at the moment, but I'll probably come off the fence because I do believe in voting rather than abstaining.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, at the one of the project design team meetings that we had, I think all councillors were invited to attend, I did actually suggest that we needed to actually have a demonstration of these lights, which is what we did, and all councillors were entitled to come and have a look. I think the general feeling was that they were a significantly good idea, and I think the idea that we had an opportunity to see it was very important actually in flesh, and for that reason I certainly would like to support the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Oren.
Thank you, Chair. I, unlike other councillors, was a fan of the old fairy lights, and note with some interest that in the Olympics the metalwork was taken off the prom and put on the roundabouts. But anyway, we are where we are. We can't go back and change back the clock. Looking at these proposals, initially I was against them, but having read through this, I now understand exactly why, with the money available and the strength of the lighting problems, we cannot put fairy lights back. Putting this lighting scheme in may not please everybody. However, it doesn't preclude putting back fairy lights if there is sufficient support for in the future. There's no reason why you couldn't have both. So I've been on the fence, but I'm coming round to the idea that we don't want to lose this money. If we vote no to this, it doesn't mean we get fairy lights back. So we need to take hold of this investment for our town and not let it slip through our fingers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Weller.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I've been sitting on the fence a little bit as well, and I don't approve of abstaining. I have to say that I have a nostalgia for the fairy lights, but it is that, it's a nostalgia. We no longer have the fairy lights, and the report is very, very comprehensive in explaining why at the moment we can't have the fairy lights. There's no reason, I was thinking as I was driving along this morning, there's no reason why hotels shouldn't string lights across their balconies in a necklace and do it that way if they're so minded. However, it would not suit Mrs. Ellis, and I don't think it will suit me either. I thank her for her very careful explanation of exactly what we gained with losing the fairy lights and what we could continue to gain. I do agree with Mr. Watley that we do need to make sure that the shelter lights and the lights over the prom are always in good repair, because that makes an enormous difference. Never mind artistic anythings, lights on the prom are important, because these lights aren't going to provide illumination for walkers, they are going to provide an effect. I have to say, personally, I find them underwhelming. But that's my personal view. Other people like them, and that's fine. I'm more concerned with the process that got us to here. We did a great consultation. We did inform the public, and I think that we did that very well, and we don't often. So we should applaud ourselves with the help of the Coastal Community Fund that we achieved that. I think it was a shame that in the end, the decision to go with this particular group seemed less than transparent, and that's a shame, and that concerns me. But on the whole, I think everyone is right. We cannot risk just turning our noses up at the offer of money for these lights.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, I think Councillor Kosh wants to respond.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Just to come back to your comments upon the lighting that's already in place, I have actually sent up an email yesterday in response to a stream of emails that I was copied into to ask the engineers to get back to me at the earliest to give me some costings on replacing the lamps that are not working around the shelters. Those are the ones you've picked up on the spotlights, and also any other lights that do need maintenance along that whole Esplanade length. And I'm just waiting for a response. Once we've got their wish list, then we can go forward and hopefully, get the money, to do it. But we need the money to do it. And he hasn't got back to me to tell me exactly what's wrong. But I do take the point, and we are on the case. Thank you.
Thank you. I think let's stick with the point on this particular paper about the lights. First of all, personally, a big thank you to Mr. Christie. I'm not sure of your first name, but Peter, thank you. A very well written report, very thorough. And as you can see, a number of members have been swayed by that report. It's an extremely thorough report. Thank you very much for that. My own feeling is that, on a personal level about these lights, is that you will never get 20 people in the same room agreeing on the same design, whatever you do. And what we're trying to do desperately here is merge a 21st century future for the town with an acknowledgement of our past. I think these lights, in my view, and I think Adina's view, probably successfully moving us towards that. So can we move the motion?
Thank you, Chair. I move the motion that we take a vote on the paper. Can I have a second?
Recommendation 3.
Recommendation 3, as is. Second, Councillor Reid.
In favour? Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, item 7, the update report on options for improved toilet facilities. Councillor Weller.
Thank you. You have before you 3 recommendations. They're actually numbered 1, 2 and 2. They should be 1, 2 and 3, and I apologise for that. I didn't pick it up until yesterday. One is to approve option 4A. You will remember that last month you looked at option 6. This is a hybrid in effect of the 4 and 6, taking on board the idea that it would be good to have some income generation within the building, and I had intended to speak on a 4A last month, giving this option. So I hope that you've looked at that, and I hope that you will feel that gives you, it recreates what's there in terms of the kiosk and ice cream sales and so on, but it also gives a further space which the town council will have the ability to decide what they do with, and that may well be a TIC, it may be selling buckets and spades, it may be anything the town council wishes, but it gives them a possibility of income generation to help support the public toilets. We do need an additional funding for that 4A, but not as much as if we went to option 6. The recommendation 3 is to ask you to delegate to the strategic director in consultation with the brief holder on the exact location for additional modular facilities along the seafront, and that is to make sure that we have provision for the pavilion end of the sands. As you're aware, the temporary toilets that are currently on the pavilion car park will be removed at the end of this year, and I'm very anxious that before the start of next season that we have provision at that end of the town. I think there were a couple of other things that I wanted to add into the report. If you'll bear with me whilst I find those. Yes, you spoke last month about placing a modular unit at the pier bandstand, and whilst if money were available, that would be wonderful. It was the inadequate and substandard facility currently located at Green Hill, which made the British Toilets Association feel that we needed to do something at the pier bandstand. But actually, with upgrading Green Hill, then the pier bandstand is adequate. It's not fantastic, but it is certainly adequate, provided the cleaning and everything is kept up to date, and its maintenance. So I would suggest that we put any suggestion of modular unit at the pier bandstand on a back burner. I think that that's a question that can be addressed by the Town Council. Should they feel that they need additional facilities for a one-off event at any time, then they could put in temporary units there just for a couple of days, whatever is needed. But that is a decision that the Town Council can most certainly look at and deal with. The unit down at the pavilion, we did have infrastructure there. It was put there for the Olympics. It was fragile. It wasn't fit for purpose. And what I'm proposing now with the recommendation is that we build something there that is much more robust, that the infrastructure doesn't last just one season. It will be there for many seasons to come. And then the modular unit can be placed there during the course of the main season and removed, and the infrastructure will always be in place as and when it's needed. Again, the Alexandra Gardens facilities are adequate for winter months. They are not adequate for the full season. Coming back to the toilet scheme, it was stated in the minutes of the last meeting that there had been a poor response, but that the town centre manager would continue. I'd like to suggest that the town centre manager does no further work on this. We have had no real response, no take-up on a community toilet scheme. That's very sad, but it is the case, and I see no point in spending more time and more resource on something that at the moment is just not happening. Individual businesses are very kind and very helpful, and we applaud that and encourage others to do so, but I don't think we should spend any more time on that. Coming back to the former TIC building, as I stated to Councillor Bruce earlier, if you want this project to come forward and you want to, if one of you wants to put in an amendment to say that we should terminate leases early at the cost that that will give us, and go ahead with the scheme in a quicker, more quickly, then by all means do. But it was unpopular when we did it last time. I suspect it would be unpopular and costly if we try to do it again. But that is this management committee's choice, and it's a choice that you may or may not decide to go with. Finally, because of the time restraints that we're in, we will clearly have to have a conversation with the new town clerk. And I don't know whether there will be a shadow town council, but if so, obviously the shadow town council as well. But what I would like this council to do is to progress the project as far as is humanly possible, so that if those elements that aren't completed before we cease to exist and the town council takes over, everything is in place so that they can hit the ground running and not be presented with a huge piece of work that they aren't ready to undertake, because that will hold everything up. So there is a risk in this because of the crossover of councils, but I think it can be managed by proper conversations with the people who will be following us next year. I've got Mrs. Cairn, Sarah Khan here to answer any questions if you would like. I'm happy to answer any questions myself. Otherwise, I commend the recommendations to you. Thank you.
Councillor Kosher.
Thank you. I've looked at the paper and I'm reading through. I would just like to get assurances, because I know we always go through the equalities part of the paper, and I was reading the bit where it says, access, ease of access. I would just like to get some kind of reassurance that the actual access to get into the toilets has been passed, and the minimum access to get the opening does take account of the new modern wheelchairs that are available. It seems like a done thing, but I just couldn't find that they've actually been consulted upon that.
Yes, they have. And in fact, I'm in fairly regular contact with the Access Group in Weymouth from former brief holding roles. I'd be happy for Councillor Orrell to make any comments, but it's always very useful, and something that I do on a regular basis is walk around with people in wheelchairs and watch how they are manoeuvring things, because things like drop curbs, which we who aren't in wheelchairs, viewers dropped, actually aren't when you're in a wheelchair. So all those things I hope and believe have been taken into account, but I'd be very pleased for Councillor Orrell to add his thoughts on that.
Thank you on that. And I do ask it from a point of view, having been in a wheelchair, and I knew what it was like trying to get into conveniences, when they did say it was easy access. Trust me, it was not easy.
Councillor Byer.
Thank you. Can I just clarify the position in terms of the ongoing discussions we have with the potential Unity Authority, as we're all members of the shadow authorities, we know, in terms of budget commitments and budget limitations that are being that we're working towards, and perhaps Councillor Huckle, I know Councillor Kant is also on the shadow executive. So could I just be reminded what our position is in terms of making budget commitments over a certain level, and what that level is in relation to delivery of this programme within the timeline that's being suggested?
Yes, thank you. As the lead member for the Shadow Unity on Property and Assets, and having helped to design the 10 checklist points, this exceeds 100,000, so it will have to be presented through the 151 officers to the Shadow Authority for an OK before we go ahead, I think.
Sorry, through you, Chair. For this one, because the funding's already been allocated.
Oh, we allocated 16.
It was allocated.
Okay, yeah, sorry. It's not new spend.
So it's not new spend, so this wouldn't need to go through the shadow.
Councillor Reid.
Yeah, this is why I'm a little bit confused, because in 2017, 400,000 was allocated to improve and refurbish, as I understood it, the existing toilets. And now that money is now being moved to not refurbish the existing toilets, but to build a new lot of toilets. Is that correct?
Martin, have a shot at that?
Yes, certainly.
No, that's the 400,000 was to include provision of a new facility and improve and refurbish where possible others. So that there's been a programme of work going on over the last year or so to make improvements, deep cleans, etc. to some of the other facilities, while this piece of work has been going on to also bring forward a new facility.
So that 400,000 that was allocated in June 2017 is not the same amount. It's a lesser amount because it's already been spent on. Some has. So I'm sorry it's being a bit simple here, but it's a bit misleading because it's saying that the £400,000 is still there and an additional VAT, but it's not. It's less than that from the original amount. So actually the extra you want from funding streams to build the new toilet is more than is written in here, because 400,000 is what part of this budget is based on. It's not existing anymore.
Yeah, if I can clarify, just talking to Sarah here, the cleansing, etc., and the work that we've done so far, we've actually done within our existing budgets, which, as was pointed out earlier, we were previously underspending, so we've actually brought that forward. So the budget is intact to do this work.
Right, Councillor Taylor, I think. Then Councillor.
Thank you. My concerns are also slightly around the funding for this. I'm very much in favour of 4A. I think that's quite a good scheme. But there's an additional ask of 24,000, and there's no sort of statement about where that is coming from. Is that coming off of the 2 blocks that we allocated 80,000 for, or where does it come from? I don't know whether Julie, whether you could
tell us where's the money.
Currently, the assets and infrastructure budget is predicting a favourable variance, so I would be suggesting it comes from the existing budget in the current financial year. And that's absolutely fine within the protocol to allocate our existing budgets to that funding.
So there's no call on the revenue balances that we're allocating to other projects through a paper that will come later? Councillor Novak.
Could I also ask us another question? Is I was quite surprised in this paper that it suddenly popped up that the toilets at the pavilion were basically going to be taken down in September, and I'm just wondering why that wasn't mentioned on the paper that we had last month, because I think that's quite significant. Thank you.
It was.
Was it? Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Novak.
Thank you, Chair. Definitely support this paper. A vibrant town needs good facilities for the public, whether they're locals or visitors, and we need a modern toilet block to cope with the hundreds of people to come to Weymouth. When we're splashing out all this money on toilets, can I ask the brief holder to consider bringing forward a report to reinstall the toilet in Victoria Gardens or Portland? It was closed many years ago, and given that Portland is paying out about £80,000 of this intended new toilet block on Weymouth, a few thousand, I told it would cost about £7,000 to reopen the toilets on Victoria Gardens. Would be a splendid opportunity to enhance the gardens. The volunteers do an excellent work already, but when they put on events, they have to send people to the local pub if they need facilities. So a little bit of investment in Portland, because Portland is investing in Weymouth.
Thank you. Before I bring Councillor Lyons in, I think he was first, then back to Councillor Lyons. Just what I have to say just ties in a bit with what Councillor Novak says that slightly puzzled me. We seem to have got slightly lost somewhere in this whole process with understanding. I mean, there seems to be 480,000 in total allocated to things to do with toilet changes over time. Some money's been spent already refurbishing from existing budgets. I think what I'm not clear about now at all is I see this, which is, we approved this in 16, so it's been a long time coming, but here it is. But, I'm with Councillor Novak, and I recall in the past there was a list of other toilet facilities, the other 14 or how many we've got. And there was an indication of, from the consultants we have in, the British Toilet Association, saying what needed to be done to bring them all up to standard. I don't think we have any sighting at the moment as to where we've got to on that, or how far we are advanced in that process or programme.
We do have a report from the British Toilets Association. We asked them, because this remit was quite specifically for town centre public conveniences. Its remit was not for any other part of the borough, rightly or wrongly. We managed to extend that so that we went out as far as Overcombe Corner, and indeed we have done the refurbishment on.
No, sorry, Councillor, I wasn't challenging the paper.
No,
I'm just raising the issue that would be very interesting now for us to hear an update on all of the toilets.
I said that our report was only for, and the remit was for the town centre. I agree with you that I think it would be very useful to look at the other facilities across the borough, and most particularly in Portland, because we did close facilities in Portland some years ago now, and in the process of hiving off the two councils into separate and we hope successful and strong entities, it would be quite nice to be able to do that so that they've got a good facility moving forward.
That's fine. I think what I said is what stands then. We'd like the officers, if they would, to immediately ask the officers to bring forward a further report, updating on the other toilets. The reason I'm thinking about that, I'm sure many of us are, is it's essential we try and get these facilities in the best order possible before the town council potentially takes responsibility for them, so they're all of a standard. Can I also ask in that report if the general issue of charging for access to toilets can be addressed? Because certainly with this property there's no mention of that, and obviously they're very high cost even if they're new, and we should certainly contemplate on such a large tourist volume whether we should introduce, I know it's been talked about in the past, in the distant past, but we need to come back to that to prepare the town council if we need to introduce a charging scheme for this new facility and potentially for the refurb facilities as they come along. Okay. Sorry, I think I've broken other people off. Councillor Blythe.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify item 23. We made reference to risk management and the delivery timeline on this proposal in relation to the existence of the town council, and as specified in item 23 about how the town council may wish to deliver the recommendations and the proposals you've got in front of us. So can I get some clarity about the way forward in the next 6 months? As I understand there's an issue about planning. So can I get some clarity from the officers about what they anticipate where we will be by April next year on this? Because clearly the town council, because this is not going to all happen before the town council comes into existence, and remind ourselves again that effectively we are always in a number of roles sitting around this table in terms of the potential town council and also in terms of the new unitary authority. So when we're making decisions now which will effectively be implemented post unitary implementation about the delivery on these issues, because we all agree we want to see something happen and we all want to know exactly what the financial implications are. That's why we're asking the questions about what exactly currently exists in the budget from what's currently been spent in relation to what's in the paper.
Yes, and how far down the programme for British Toilet Association we've got.
Could somebody answer the question around 23 about getting some, I would like some assurance around this whole agenda around risk management.
In Appendix 4 is a timeline that shows what could be achieved by
It's an outline.
this council. It's an outline, it's subject to planning consent, that's an unknown how long that will take. But if optimistically we're in a position to have got game planning consent, to have print of justification and possibly to out tender by the time the town council comes into existence. Wouldn't have started on site. Obviously the earliest possible start, which is May 2019. But with the leases, the current leaseholders, it's anticipated that probably the realistic start will be September 2019, which I think a lot of discussions in the town council about already.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just obviously wasn't involved in the decision in 2016. I just need to be clear. The cost estimate of option 4A, which is the one on proposal, is somewhere between 370 and 424,000. How does that? I'm uncertain. How does this fit in with the 400,000 or so that we allocated for overall improvements to the other toilets? Is this part of it, or is this additional to it?
I can sort of answer that. I think to help you out here with my brief for finance. I think the explanation Martin's given is that the 400,000 is intact as approved in 16, and that the 24,000 asked for in 2.2 is the potential downside of the cost estimate reaching 424. It's the difference in those two numbers, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, that's right, Chair. The budget is intact for the provision of this facility. At your last meeting, it was agreed that we would progress with option A, subject to us coming back with a more detailed analysis of option 6. Option 6 is well over the budget, but through that work we come up with the idea of option 4A, which provides the lettable space that you wanted, and that's an extra 24,000. So that's the picture for completeness.
If I could ask
just one other point on this. On option A, you show, just from the sketch, you show at the end of it a kiosk which is in the lettable space. Is anybody going to want to buy ice creams from a kiosk which is right next to a long toilet block? It doesn't, to me, it doesn't seem aesthetically very attractive.
That's the current situation, is the kiosk, is the changing rooms. The changing rooms is behind the kiosk at the moment. Changing places to it is behind the kiosk.
We'll take a couple more questions, then we'll move back to Councillor Wells to summarise, and then we'll Councillor Orwell.
Thank you, Chair. So I asked them to think about the disabled access. I think from looking at these papers, the disabled access looks reasonable to me. Page 37, officers correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks to me like we've got 3 decent sized disabled toilets there, 2 which standard wheelchairs probably, and 1 looks like big enough for one of these electric wheelchairs. On page 41 we had a picture of modular blocks, which again to my view look better than what we have at the moment, in that they are level access for wheelchairs. In the past, if you remember, we've had been up and down steps in Bond Street or under the under space, which is not friendly for wheelchairs. So this is a great improvement, particularly if it replaces the one at the pavilion, which the modular block was kind of sat like a caravan. These new ones look much more friendly for wheelchairs, so they have my support. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. It's a big anything's got to be an improvement on what we've got, hasn't it? I think a couple more quick questions, then we'll let the Councillor round up. Councillor Mead, you first.
Thank you. I think that this, we need to progress with this, but I'm a little bit concerned that in progressing with this, our focus is going to be on this and not maintaining the existing toilets. That I know you're shaking your head and saying no, but we already know that there are countless complaints coming from the public about the existing toilets. And no matter how much we reassure them, the maintenance is on a regular basis. We recently had a very long letter from somebody who's visited Weymouth listing all its faults over the last 45 years. And she had been she and her family had been to the toilet somewhere in the town centre with feces covered over the handles. And, again, it only takes one bad press to make the whole lot be exactly the same. So that's my concern. I just need assurances from this paper that there is going to be an existing, ongoing, full and hopefully improved maintenance of the existing toilets while we still look to pursuing this.
I'm sure that's the case. Councillor, and then we'll allow Councillor Wells to sum up.
Okay, just a couple of points to clarify. I believe that the existing toilets that we're talking about, the underground ones, will remain in use presumably during the summer period. And the 400k is tucked away in our capital programme now, which will be transferred to the Town Council, assuming that the Town Council becomes responsible for toilets, and presumably the extra 24k will also come from the capital programme eventually.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, would you like to sum up with the recommendations?
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, to the underground toilets will still be there. We have recently received a letter from somebody saying how good they are, and they will be there, but they will be seasonal. We do need to address the charging of toilets. In the consultation, there seemed to be a large number of people who were in favour of that. Our feeling is that there should be some free facilities still, but that for all the ones that certainly this new facility and others there should be charging, and that what that extent will clearly be a decision for the town council, not for us, but our recommendation would be that they do that. In terms of cleaning, I'm concerned that you've received such a bad letter, and I really quite appreciate having a copy of that if that's possible. I've received a lot of comments on how much better our cleaning is, but it is an ongoing problem, and as I said at full council, the cleaners can come in and do a thorough clean, and 5 minutes later somebody can misuse the facility, and it will be an hour or so before the cleaners are back. That's why we have phone numbers there for people to call. If they call, the cleaner will come back out. But short of having attendance, it's very difficult, and that is a decision that the town council will have to look at as well, because some facilities they may feel they want to have attendance at, and I would be in favour of that. So as I said earlier, we're in a difficult position because we're looking at the future, and we won't be in that future, or some of us won't be part of that future.
Forgive me, Councillor, before you move the recommendations, the reason I raised the issue of charging is, I would guess, as these turnstiles need to be incorporated in the construction, that it might affect the cost. So we need to, you know,
there are fancy technical ways of doing it rather than turnstiles, but we are dealing with that.
So the officers, before we get to the town council, if we've got this underway, we should at least make sure it's in the original specification of the building, if that's the way we go.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Judging the
Yes,
recommendation.
certainly. Can I come back very quickly to the timeline? As has been said, we won't have vacant possession until May, or we won't have permission, we don't think, until May of next year. If we decided then to make a start, it would be extraordinarily disruptive. We could make a start on peripheral areas. It would be extraordinarily disruptive in the middle of the season, which is why we're saying we won't do anything until September next year, at the end of the season. I come back to, if this committee feels that that's too late, wants to suggest that we get vacant possession in September of this year, then that's a decision that I need you to make pretty quickly. In any event, I would urge you to accept the recommendations, because we're on a very tight timeline anyway, and if we don't progress fairly quickly, we won't achieve the timeline that we've got. So I commend the recommendation to you. And get a second up, please.
Yes. In favour? Okay, thanks. Move on then with the council agenda item 8, page 45, those who've got. By the way, Sarah, thank you very much for that very thorough report.